Hello, I'm Elaine Krajewski-Ellison, and you are on the Mathematical Quilts channel. This happens to be quilt number 24 in a series of quilts. Soon you'll be seeing quilt 25 and 26 as they are being photographed, so they will be on YouTube shortly. This quilt is called the Draste effect. The Draste effect actually originated from an artist called Jean-Antoine Lyotard in the 1700s. Mr. Lyotard generated an image of a maiden and repeated the image over and over and over again. This was the start of the idea of what a draste is. The idea went around the world and soon became known as the Draste effect. In the 1900s, the Draste chocolate company in Europe began showing this particular picture of a maiden holding a tray with a box of chocolate. The box of chocolate had a maiden holding a tray with a box of chocolate, and that particular box of chocolate had a maiden holding a tray with a box of chocolate, etc., etc. So you can see how this idea of nesting came about when the Draste idea was born. You can see it here in the quilt, of course. Here we've got our logarithmic spiral. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But you can see how the bird of paradise is nested inside this particular spiral. So this idea of using a logarithmic spiral probably came from M.C. Escher's print gallery. This happens to be a 1956 drawing of print gallery. And here happens to be the grid that Escher used when he drew print gallery. You can see that the grid is very wonky. And Professor Lenstra from Leiden University analyzed the mathematics behind this particular grid. So that was actually the start of why people were using logarithmic transformations. Here's another article, too, on the artful mathematics, the heritage of M.C. Escher, that I also used in generating this quilt. Well, logarithmic transformation is just a real fancy name for this being like a nautilus shell spiral, or equal angular spiral, we sometimes call it. And the idea that these things were nested inside was developed using an app. You can see the forested area around the quilt itself is quite beautiful. It adds a lot of color to the quilt. And there are many different logarithmic curves inside on the border of the quilt. So this was all hand quilted. It's beautifully hand quilted. And the actual dimensions of the quilt are 55 by 74. As I mentioned, there are other quilts that are becoming that you'll be seeing on the YouTube channel.